Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. When Oliver Blake inherited his grandfather's grand estate, he thought he'd found paradise. No neighbors, no rules, just a sleek McLaren and endless freedom. But paradise soon turned to war, thanks to one woman, one tree, and a battle that would shake the quiet countryside to its roots. They say grief comes in waves, but when I inherited my grandfather's estate, it hit me like a landslide, with a driveway. There I stood, one boot on gravel, one foot still in the life I'd left behind in the city, staring up at a two-story colonial manor wrapped in ivy and surrounded by towering oaks that looked like they'd seen the Civil War. It smelled like fresh pine, old books, and quiet power. My name is Oliver Blake, and if you told me a year ago I'd be living 30 miles outside D.C. on a chunk of land the size of a small principality, I'd have laughed and driven off in my Camry. Now, the Camry's gone, replaced by something I'd waited half my life to afford, my dream car, a McLaren 765 LT Spider. It was sleek, it was loud, and it was finally mine. The land, the house, the trees, especially the trees, were part of a legacy I didn't take lightly. My grandfather had been borderline obsessed with maintaining every inch of the property. His journal, which I found tucked inside a metal drawer in the garage, was filled with notes about root health, soil density, and even the migratory habits of squirrels. But the jewel of the landscape, the one thing he wrote about most, was the oak. Capital T, capital O. It stood right by the southeast edge of the lot, near the gravel carport I had converted into a shaded spot for the McLaren. This tree was no sapling. It was a hulking monument with bark like alligator hide and branches that curled like outstretched arms. My grandfather called it the Sentinel of the South Wind. I called it Shade. After moving in, I did the responsible thing. I hired an arborist, a guy named Phil with too many teeth and too few fingers, to check the tree's health. Phil walked around it muttering, poking the trunk, and finally slapped it like it owed him money. "She's fine," he declared. "Good roots. You'll be dead before this thing even sneezes." Good enough for me. What made this place even sweeter? No HOA. None of that Stepford nightmare stuff where they tell you what curtains to hang or how long your grass can be before someone shows up with a fine. The HOA was a mile down the road, managing a nearby subdivision called Whispering Pines, a laughable name considering the woman who ran it yelled more than any pine I've ever heard. Her name, of course, was Karen. At first, I thought I was free, a man and his land, a muscle-bound British hypercar, a symphony of crickets and engine growls under the open sky, no neighbors peering over hedges, no board meetings about mailbox color palettes, just peace. But peace, as I would learn, is fragile, and sometimes all it takes is one unsolicited knock on your door to make it crumble like old bark. It started with a knock, not the timid kind you get from Girl Scouts or lost delivery guys. No, this one had rhythm, intention, like a court summons wrapped in wood. When I opened the door, there she stood, Karen Ellington, in all her polyester-suited clipboard-wielding glory. Her hair was an architectural feat, a platinum bob so tight it looked like a helmet. Her smile was the kind people used to describe poison as pleasantly sweet. "Good morning," she chirped, eyes scanning my porch like a TSA agent. "You must be Mr. Blake. I'm Karen, president of the Whispering Pines Homeowners Association. We're just so thrilled to have you join the neighborhood." I blinked. "I'm not actually part of Whispering Pines. This property is private land, not under HOA jurisdiction." She tilted her head with mock confusion, like I'd told her the sky was teal. "Oh, well, we consider anything within a half-mile part of our extended stewardship. We take pride in maintaining community aesthetics and, frankly, safety." Her eyes flicked toward the great oak near my carport. "That tree," she said, lowering her voice like it was a scandal, "is a hazard. It's enormous. It's leaning. Frankly, it gives off a very unregulated vibe." I raised an eyebrow. "It's perfectly healthy. Just had it inspected." "Yes, but does your inspector have HOA certification? We have very specific guidelines about what qualifies as safe flora." I almost laughed. "Guidelines? For trees I own on land she didn't? No offense, but this land's been in my family for 3 generations. It's not part of Whispering Pines. That oak has been here longer than your HOA charter." Karen didn't miss a beat. She scribbled something on her clipboard. "Still, We strongly advise you consider removal. I'd hate for something tragic to happen." I looked past her, toward the oak. Its branches moved gently in the wind, casting slow-moving shadows across the McLaren like a hand brushing velvet. Tragic was not that tree falling. Tragic would be not having it there at all. "Appreciate the concern," I said, "but I'll pass." She smiled again, but the warmth had vanished. "Suit yourself," she said, turning on her heel. "Just remember, if that tree ever causes damage, you could be considered liable under Municipal Code 1204. You did know that, right?" I didn't respond. I just watched her strut off, heels clicking like gunshots on my brick path. Over the next week, she appeared 3 more times, once under the guise of a friendly check-in, another time holding a stack of newsletters outlining voluntary beautification initiatives, i.e., mandatory guidelines wrapped in passive-aggressive fonts. The third time, she didn't even bother with pleasantries. "This tree is scaring the neighbors," she announced. "Which neighbors?" I asked, glancing toward the empty stretch of woods that separated me from her subdivision. She blinked. "Well, me. I'm scared." It was like talking to a politician, a judge, and your least favorite aunt, all rolled into one power-drunk smoothie. By the end of that week, I started locking my gate. Not out of fear, just because I was tired of hearing the words community values weaponized like a battering ram. Still, I figured that would be the end of it. After all, how far could one woman possibly go just to remove a tree she didn't own? Turns out, pretty damn far. It was a Saturday, one of those golden cinematic Saturdays that make you forget the world's a mess. The kind of day where the sky looks photoshopped, your coffee tastes like a warm hug, and even the birds sound like they're humming your favorite playlist. I had just finished detailing the McLaren, foam-washed, polished, dried by hand. The car gleamed like a drop of black mercury under the late morning sun, tucked snugly under the carport I'd reinforced just last month. My only concern that day, whether I'd go for a long drive or just sit in the driver's seat and admire the damn thing with a beer in hand. That serenity lasted all of 10 minutes. I heard it first, a deep, stuttering roar, a chainsaw. Then came the shouts. Not panic, not alarm. Orders. Worksite orders. I stepped off my porch and froze. There was a work crew, 4 men in dusty jeans and safety vests, right there on my lawn. One of them was halfway up my oak tree, sawing through a massive branch, while another was hauling ropes and pulleys from a battered truck parked on my grass. I sprinted toward them, heart racing, mind blank. "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" The man with the saw looked down and yelled something I couldn't hear over the motor. The guy on the ground, young, chewing gum like he was at a carnival, shrugged. "Orders," he said. "HOA told us to take it down. Something about hazardous lean angle." "I'm not in the HOA," I snapped. "This is private property. You're trespassing." He scratched his head. Lady in the white Escalade said she had jurisdiction. And as if summoned by name, there she was. Karen standing on the other side of the split-rail fence with a walkie-talkie in hand, and a grin so smug it could have curdled milk. "We're doing you a favor, Oliver," she called out. "You should be thanking me." I barely heard her, because at that moment, the chainsaw above let out a final whine, and the branch gave way. Except it wasn't just a branch. It was half the tree. And it pivoted, slowly, grotesquely, defying the laws of weight and warning, crashing through the air with a sound like thunder getting torn apart. I screamed, but it was too late. The oak slammed down directly on my McLaren, not just a dent. Not just a cracked mirror, no, this was total annihilation. A carbon fiber coffin. Shards of windshield sparkled like glitter across the grass. The hood crumpled like tissue. One of the wheels was thrown 15 feet and landed upside down, still spinning like a forgotten top. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. My entire body locked up, like even my cells didn't want to believe what they were seeing. It felt like a funeral. But worse, because funerals come with closure. This was a murder, a public execution, and the weapon, my grandfather's tree, my heritage, my shade, my sanctuary. I took a step forward, and then everything tilted. My knees buckled, my vision blurred. All I could hear was white noise and Karen's voice saying something about liability coverage. I remember someone grabbing my arm, a worker yelling, "He's going down." The last thing I saw before it all went black was the McLaren's emblem, twisted, barely hanging from the grill. I woke up in the back of an ambulance, an oxygen mask strapped to my face, heart monitor beeping like a dying metronome. The EMT leaned over me. "Sir, you had a severe stress response. We thought it might be a cardiac event. You're lucky." No, I thought. Lucky would have been never meeting a woman who thinks authority grows like mold. As they rolled me away, I caught one last glimpse through the back window. Karen, on her phone, laughing. I clenched my fist and made a promise right there. Oxygen be damned. She wasn't just going to pay for the car, she was going to pay for all of it. Waking up in a hospital gown with a heart monitor glued to your chest does strange things to your pride. The doctor said it wasn't a heart attack, more like a sympathetic nervous system overload, which I translated to, your brain exploded from rage faster than your heart could keep up. They kept me overnight for observation. I spent most of that time staring at the ceiling, cycling through every possible way I could make Karen legally, publicly, and financially regret ever touching my tree. The moment I was discharged, I called my attorney, Rachel Levin, a woman so sharp she could draw blood with a legal pad. I didn't even have to explain much. I just texted her a photo of my totaled McLaren lying under an oak carcass and added, "This is war." She responded with a thumbs up emoji and, "On it." We pulled surveillance footage from my property, multiple angles, high def, sound included. The footage clearly showed Karen escorting the work crew onto my land. She wasn't just overseeing the operation, she was commanding it, like General Patton. At one point, she even said, on camera, "Don't worry, boys, I've already drafted the press release. Just make sure the trunk falls clean. We want it done before he gets back." Rachel stared at the playback, eyes wide. She left a digital confession. Jesus, this is a gift. But Karen wasn't backing down. Oh no. Instead of apologizing or hiding like any rational human with a conscience, she escalated. Within a week, the neighborhood was littered with HOA flyers claiming that I was endangering community safety, blocking cooperative efforts to beautify the perimeter zone, and my personal favorite, harboring emotional instability unfit for residency in a high-standards environment. Emotional instability? Lady, you dropped 1,000 pounds of oak on my Lamborghini-turned-McLaren. I think I earned the right to weep in my driveway. Rachel helped me file a civil lawsuit for $280,000 in direct property damage, $50,000 in landscape repairs, $100,000 in emotional damages. Yes, the hospital report made it in. And a bonus claim for trespassing and unauthorized land. Alteration. Karen's counterattack. Petty theater. She gathered a concerned citizens council, basically the HOA board, her yoga friends, and one guy who looked like he just liked free cookies, and held a neighborhood meeting. I wasn't invited, but someone slid a pamphlet under my gate. Is Oliver Blake endangering Whispering Pines? The truth HOA doesn't want to ignore. She even tried to bribe the workers from the tree-cutting crew to lie under oath. Thankfully, one of them had a conscience, and probably an outstanding warrant, and called Rachel directly. I ain't lying for her. Lady told us he was out of town and said she owned the fence line, but I checked the plat online. She full of it. That little phone call sealed it. We had intent, we had collusion, we had evidence, and we had motive, because apparently HOA safety is the legal version of duct tape. They try to use it on everything. Meanwhile, I couldn't mow my lawn without someone snapping photos from across the street. My mailbox was egged. A for sale sign was hammered into my yard overnight with the words "Get out" scrawled in Sharpie. But I didn't flinch, because in 3 weeks we were going to court, and I had one hell of a legal chainsaw of my own. Courtrooms aren't like they look in movies. No soaring music, no gavel slams with dramatic zoom-ins. In real life, the drama doesn't come from the walls, it comes from the people. And on the day of our hearing, the courtroom was brimming with it. Locals had shown up like it was open mic night at the county fair. Some came for gossip. Others brought popcorn. Literally. I saw a guy in the back eating from a Ziploc bag. I sat at the plaintiff's table next to Rachel, who was dressed like she was prepared to prosecute Zeus himself. Across from us, flanked by 2 HOA board members and a man in a tweed suit, who I assume was her 4th or 5th lawyer attempt, was Karen. She wore a beige blazer and a smirk so smug it practically needed its own chair. I half expected her to bring a crown labeled Community Sovereign. The judge, Honorable Marion Foster, walked in like she didn't have time for nonsense and smelled it already. She gave us a look over her bifocals that said, "Don't waste my morning unless someone's going to jail or spontaneously combust." Opening statements began. Rachel stood, calm and cool. Your Honor, this is a case of unlawful property destruction, trespassing, and emotional and financial harm inflicted with full awareness and premeditated intent by a homeowners association acting outside of its legal jurisdiction. Karen's lawyer, a man who looked like he hadn't slept since dial-up internet, stood shakily and said, "We believe the actions were justified in accordance with public safety doctrines and community preservation concerns." Judge Foster narrowed her eyes. "On land not within your HOA?" Dead silence. Rachel dropped the first bombshell within minutes. Surveillance footage. We played the clip on a screen the court wheeled in. Karen, standing like Captain Ahab at the base of my oak, barking instructions. "Cut the middle first. Don't worry about permits. I've got it covered." At the sight of herself on screen, Karen's expression twisted into something between confusion and, "Oh crap." Then came the audio, her voice clear as a bell. "He'll thank us later. And if he doesn't, well, I've got a way of handling these types." The gallery murmured. One elderly woman clutched her pearls. A man in a Hawaiian shirt chuckled, "She's done." Karen's lawyer objected. "Context. That clip is, out of context." Rachel calmly handed the judge the full recording transcript. Full context. 48 uninterrupted minutes of it. But the turning point wasn't the footage. It was me. Rachel called me to the stand. I stood, walked up, hand on the Bible, swore in. I didn't give a speech. I didn't cry. I told them the truth, how I saved for years to afford the McLaren, how I had the tree inspected, how I returned home to find not only my car destroyed, but a part of my legacy reduced to splinters, how I collapsed in my own yard from the shock and woke up in an ambulance. Rachel asked softly, "Oliver, what did that moment feel like?" I looked straight at the jury. It felt like my grandfather died again, only this time, someone did it on purpose. The courtroom was so still, you could have heard a gavel drop. But instead, you heard Karen's voice, muttering under her breath, "Oh, please." Judge Foster looked up slowly. "Did you say something, Mrs. Ellington?" Karen, flustered, stood up. "Yes. This is absurd. He's weaponizing sentiment. He's manipulating you. I was protecting the community." Rachel raised a single eyebrow. "You mean your personal vendetta against a tree you didn't like?" Karen's face flushed. "That tree was leaning." Rachel slid forward a printed report from the arborist. "Independent assessment, structurally sound, low risk, no removal recommended." And then it got worse for her. One of the workers we subpoenaed stepped in as a witness, nervous but honest. She told us it was her land, said the guy was a flight risk. We thought it was legit. Rachel leaned in. "Did she offer you anything?" He hesitated. "Cash bonus." Said it was for quick work and silence. Boom. Judge Foster straightened her notes. "I've heard enough." Verdict. In favor of the plaintiff. Full compensation, $280,000 for the vehicle, $100,000 in punitive damages, $75,000 for emotional distress. Yes, the ambulance bill was included. HOA fined $50,000 for jurisdictional overreach. Karen personally barred from holding any HOA office again. Her jaw dropped. The room erupted. The guy with popcorn fist-pumped. Even the court clerk coughed what sounded suspiciously like a laugh. Karen shrieked, "This is a witch hunt." Judge Foster calmly replied, "No, Mrs. Ellington, this is justice." And justice, my friends, drives a black McLaren. You'd think that after court, after the thunderous slam of that verdict echoing through the county courthouse, I'd feel immediate closure, and in some ways, I did. Karen was dethroned. The HOA board scattered like ants whose queen had been stepped on. My bank account was replenished with enough zeros to make the McLaren dealership send me personal thank you muffins. But peace? That came slower. The property was quiet again, eerily so. No more flyers taped to my fence. No more camera flashes from across the street. Just the wind brushing the leaves of the oaks that still stood. I'd started rebuilding the carport, this time with reinforced steel and motion-detecting lights that could probably blind an incoming hawk. My new McLaren, a sleek obsidian beauty, sat beneath it, untouched, perfect. But somehow, the shine felt different, not worse, just less innocent. Then came the knock. Not the Karen knock. Not that fast bureaucratic rap she used when armed with clipboards and inflated authority. This one was soft, hesitant, almost human. I opened the door. There she was. Karen Ellington, no HOA badge, no clipboard, no oversized sunglasses. Just Karen. Hair tied back. No makeup. No entourage. For the first time since I'd met her, she looked like someone trying not to be seen. She stood there silently for a moment, then spoke. "Oliver, I wanted to apologize. Not the kind you do through lawyers. The real kind." I didn't say anything, just watched her. Let her talk. I don't know what happened to me. I think I got lost in the position, the rules, the power. I convinced myself I was doing what was best for everyone, but really, I was just doing what made me feel important. She looked down at the porch boards as if reading guilt written in the grain. That tree, your car, the ambulance. I watched it all happen and still thought I was right. It wasn't until I sat in that courtroom and saw the way you looked when they played that video. It was like I finally saw what everyone else already knew. That I'd crossed every line. She met my eyes, voice trembling now. "I'm sorry, I mean that. You didn't deserve any of it." And you know what? I believed her. Or at least, I believed that she believed it. I stepped out onto the porch with her and leaned on the railing. The wind rustled the trees, new leaves sprouting already from the stump of what had been the oak. Life stubbornly moving on, as always. "I appreciate you saying that," I said. "Really? Not everyone has the guts to show up after something like that." She looked relieved for a second, hopeful even, but I wasn't finished. "I accept your apology, Karen, but I can't forget what happened. I don't look at my card the same way anymore. I don't walk across my lawn without thinking about what used to be there. That tree meant something. So did the car. And my time in that hospital? That wasn't just stress. That was something breaking." She nodded slowly, silent again. That hopeful glint drained from her face, but she didn't protest. "I get it," she said finally. "Some things can't be fixed, but I wanted you to hear it. From me." And then, without another word, she walked back down the porch steps, down the gravel path, and out through the gate. No drama, no last words, just footsteps, fading. I watched her go until she disappeared around the corner. Then I turned back toward the house, where my dog Moose, a dopey golden retriever with a better moral compass than half the county, stood watching me like he was waiting for judgment. "Yeah," I said aloud, mostly to Moose. "She meant it. Doesn't change anything, but she meant it." Later that evening, I took the McLaren out for a spin, not because I needed to go anywhere, just to feel that engine purr under me again. The road was empty, the sky was blushing in orange streaks, and the tires kissed the asphalt like old lovers reunited. I smiled. Closure doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes with the roar of a V8 and a wide-open road. 3 months later, I bought her house. It went up for sale quietly through a private broker. The rumor around town was that Karen had moved to Florida to start over. HOA circles whispered it like a tabloid scandal. Some said she'd joined a mindfulness retreat. Others claimed she was now writing a memoir titled "I Tried to Save the Neighborhood." I didn't care either way. All I knew was the HOA Palace of Passive Aggression was up for grabs, and I had the cash. Closing was smooth. I never even stepped inside until the deed was in my hand. And when I did, it was everything I expected. Sterile beige walls, laminate flooring, a security system more paranoid than a Bond villain's lair, and a linen closet filled with old HOA meeting minutes and motivational quotes embroidered on pillows. I didn't buy it out of spite. Okay, that's a lie. I bought it entirely out of spite. But I also had a vision. A few weeks later, construction began. Fences came down. Garden plots went up. Local artists were invited to paint murals on the garage walls. Bright, ridiculous things. Cartoon squirrels parachuting from trees. A raccoon in a judge's robe, and smack dab in the center, a 10-foot-tall oak tree with a McLaren blooming out of its branches like a metallic fruit. Right on the front lawn where the HOA used to hold their monthly compliance inspections, I installed a circular flower bed lined with polished stone and a bronze plaque that read, "The Karen Ellington Memorial Garden of Overreach and Regret," dedicated to the importance of minding your own damn business. The locals loved it. We held a barbecue on opening day. I brought ribs and a karaoke machine. One of the neighbors brought cupcakes shaped like tiny fallen trees. Another dressed up as a traffic cone and called himself Community Safety. It was glorious. Kids ran through the grass. Moose, my golden retriever, ate 3 hot dogs off unattended plates. Someone set off fireworks at 3 p.m. It made no sense and no one cared. And me? I just sat back in a lawn chair, drink in hand, sunglasses on, watching the neighborhood finally breathe without someone squeezing it to death. Turns out justice doesn't always wear robes. Sometimes it blooms right out of a flower bed.